people are constantly raising the bar.
Sacrifices need to be made.
What would you guys say are your biggest weaknesses?
You or your enemy right now?
The success of life.
Just a fucking podcast.
Hey guys, welcome to the Student Side Hustle. This week I'm speaking to Dell. He is an IFBB pro and he's also studying a Bachelor of Science in Medicinal Chemistry, hoping to go into pre-med, which for me, I thought at first when I saw you on Instagram, I thought, wow, he's a bodybuilder, he's at such a high level. And then you see that you're also studying, and it's like, for a lot of people, they can't sort of comprehend the amount of work ethic and like, it's just such a high level in both aspects. How did this start, and how did you get into all of this?
Hey man, I guess I was sort of actually a while back, I was doing a commerce degree, and while I was doing that, I just wasn't really enjoying it. I was kind of doing a degree because I felt like I finished school and I had to do something. And it was around that time that I started to like take gym a bit more serious and all that sort of stuff. And like growing up, I was a swimmer, so I kind of had a bit of a background and lots and lots of times spent training and stuff. And then I started going to the gym, and just pretty much like anything I do, like I'm very much like, if I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to go and compete in bodybuilding, I'm one of those kind of all or nothing people in most things I do. And got to the point where I decided that I was going to do a show. And so 2012, I entered my first show, and that was the entered IFBB Auckland Champs. And it was like when Men's Physique first came out, so none of us like really had any clue what we were doing or anything like that. And I managed to win that. And it kind of just went on from there, and got to head overseas a few times and stuff. It took me a little while before I finally got my pro card. And I turned pro in 2015, and I've been doing it ever since. And so now I was doing Men's Physique for those times, and now I've switched to Classic Physique, but I just need a little bit more time before I actually feel like I'm kind of ready to get on stage in Classics. So
is
that's
Classic sort of, is that, because I know there's bodybuilding, which is that basically getting as big as possible or whatever, and then physique is sort of smaller and the ideal physique sort of thing, and then classic is like Arnold, all that sort of stuff. Is that sort of the general gist of it?
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, that was kind of why they did it. So they basically, it used to just be bodybuilding, and then they decided that they were going to have a men's physique class, because it was kind of for the guys that would look real good on the beach and trained hard and stuff, but didn't want to be like the massive guys that we have today. And so that's why they brought that class out. But what they found was, it was kind of, you started having like this massive separation in size, and there was kind of nothing in between. And the guys doing men's physique, like a lot of them kind of were saying, I'd love to actually compete in bodybuilding, but I'm just not big enough and stuff. So they brought out this classic division, and it's the way they've done it is they've height and weight, got this height and weight ratios. So for your height, you can be a certain amount of weight, and it kind of just keeps everyone in check. And and they're still looking for like the biggest and the most shredded guy on stage, but they're also looking for like the symmetry and the aesthetics of the overall physique, and just like back in the old days with Arnold and Frank Zane and guys like that. That's sort of kind of what we're trying to emulate a lot.
And trying to keep it very like aesthetic and not so like as big as possible, because I've heard a lot of people sort of, I don't know how you phrase it, sort of not being such a big fan of the bodybuilding, just the straight up bodybuilding, because it's so, like, I've heard people use the word grotesque, and I don't think it's, like, I personally can still like look at it and just be like amazed, but it's
not your normal. It's become like, it really is like I have so much respect for those guys and stuff, but it's almost become like a bit of a freak show, like who can be the biggest, most conditioned, like just crazy amount of muscle, and it's just sort of unattainable to your average person, and so kind of your average guy is going to just look at that and go like, what the hell, rather than like, oh well, I'd like to join a gym and I could look like that if I put some effort into it. You know,
like when people look at classic or physique, they just see, okay, wow, if I like went super hard and I did it, and like the physique is very desirable, but when you look at the huge guys, it's not so desirable.
No, that's it. Yeah, and I mean that's what's real cool too, is it's getting so many more people into the sport now. It's crazy the amount of guys that are going to the gym and training, and they're actually doing shows and stuff too. It's really quite amazing.
And I feel like I feel like from what I've seen, I've actually been thinking about doing physique, but I do not think I am big enough yet. As I started out at like 55 kgs. Now I'm like 60, 66, 65-ish. I'm hoping to get like 70 to 75 before, if I ever do. But what would your advice be to someone who, I guess someone like me who is just a normal guy but is very into their gym? Like I find it like I don't need the motivation to go and do the gym session. Like it doesn't really. But it becomes almost a hobby and becomes something that's very fun. What advice would you give to them if they did want to transition into, I guess, going and doing bodybuilding?
I think one thing that I've really noticed, and I've noticed it myself with now that I've decided I'm going up to classic, so I need to put on a fair bit of size. Like I didn't really need to grow for the past sort of 4 or 5 years. It was more just work on areas. Yeah. And now that I actually have to put on general mass in that. The biggest thing is I went back to the basics with it all. I kind of, I started doing all my compound lifts again and making them kind of the staples of my workouts. I think guys today, because there's so much information out there now, it's very easy to get caught up into doing like the new greatest thing and all that sort of stuff. Like you'll see one YouTube video that's got this guy using this cable in this special way and stuff, and it looks really cool and stuff. So you want to go try it, but I mean, nothing is going to help you put on size like getting under some really heavy weight, some weight that actually kind of scares you a little bit. And then food as well. Like you can take so many different supplements and all that sort of thing, but at the end of the day, if you're just constantly getting meals in and being really diligent with that, that's what's going to make you grow more than anything.
And how much do you think, because I've seen a lot of people talking, and I haven't put emphasis on it until this year, but actually sleep. How much of an emphasis do you put on sleep? Because I guess you're also balancing all this other stuff. How much of an emphasis do you put on getting a ton of sleep?
See, I'm what I find is that if I don't get enough sleep, I really do struggle throughout the day. And a lot of that too is because I stay away from tons of stimulants because I find they can give me quite bad anxiety and stuff. And so like I'm okay with sort of stimulants when I'm training and stuff, but if I'm just sitting around studying and that, I don't know, it's like I get a little bit overhyped from them and stuff and I can't really focus properly. And so, I find with sleeping, it's sometimes it's getting yourself to wind down a little bit and actually getting a quality sleep, not kind of waking up every couple of hours or whatever, And I mean, that's something that, I think you really do need to prioritize is making sure that you are getting the sleep, because that's when you're going to recover and grow.
Do you have any like sort of bedtime rituals? Because for me, I've recently started doing basically, phone goes off half an hour before I plan to get in bed, and then I journal. Or either one day I'll plan my goals, and then the other day I'll sort of go over how the productivity of the day went and just how the general feeling of the day went, and then I'll go and meditate in complete darkness just to get rid of, I guess, just to completely go from like 100 to 0 as fast as possible. Do you have any sort of bedtime ritual?
Yeah, definitely. I find sort of the end of the day, I really like to sort of just take my time and wind down as much as possible. And I find like I've got a journal that I take with me every day, and every morning I do gratitude. Every night I do gratitude in it, just 3 things, or find one thing that I can write 3 things about. And then sort of, I plan all my day in that. I take my notes and I, set up what I need to achieve and all that sort of thing. So I'll get up early and I'll get to uni early to do that. But then at night I go over it again and make sure that I, go over what I did and didn't do and all that. Get that done. Big one, is turning my phone off before going to bed. And I actually used to like sleep with it beside the bed, but now I'm doing my best to just leave it out in the kitchen on charge rather than having it there. And because I could easily sit up for 2 hours just on YouTube, the next thing it's after midnight. And that made a big difference. But the other thing too is reading. Like I really enjoy reading. And so I'll usually go to bed and read for 20 minutes. By that sort of time, I'm really starting to feel a bit sleepy, and definitely helps me actually get to sleep.
Do you have any book recommendations? Because I find a lot of the time, a lot of people don't know how to find those productivity books, which I've been quite in love with for the last 2 to 3 years. Is just reading as many self-development focused books. Do you have any particular favorites or any books that you think aren't even self-development focused but still bring you a lot of value?
Yeah, I think That'd be my favorite thing to read, would be self-development books as well. I actually just finished Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life. And I mean, I love that guy. I find him really interesting. Like, he's just got some really good ideas.
Interesting.
So smart, so good to listen to. And yeah, his book was really, really good. It was kind of, it was slow, but he just goes into depth and says why it's important to do different things and that. I like Tim Ferriss's books, his Tools of Titans, and so I haven't read Tribe of Mentors yet. I've sort of had a flick through it, but I really want to have a look at that. What else did I? There's a couple other books that I've read. The Power of Habit was really good. I found that really interesting. And as a student, there was a book that I read last year called Deep Work by Cal Newport, and I think that was one of the best books I've read in terms of getting me to focus and kind of. He's got this idea of like you've got pseudo work or you've got like all in or all out kind of thing. So when you're working, it should be like 100% focus, and then when you're off, you know, rather than just kind of mindlessly going through it and really sort of like chasing your tail a bit, you know. So that was a really, really good book, and his stuff's really good. So I quite like that as well. Yeah,
I loved that book as well, because it sort of it made me. I was at a point in my life where I was trying to get heaps of stuff done, and I was trying to really ramp up my work ethic, but I would just multitask all the time, and I would just waste heaps of time half-assing everything. Do you have any particular things that you think help you get shit done? Because I know for me, like, there was a long period of time when I didn't realize how to study properly. I didn't realize how much time to spend at the gym, what is productive to do in the gym, all that kind of stuff.
Sorry, I think one big thing that I've found is planning my day properly. And making sure I'm very meticulous with my routine. So, I mean, it changes a little bit. Say I'm getting ready for a show and stuff. I have like a little bit more cardio to do or things like that. But in general, I like to get up early. I find I work the best in the morning. Like my first lecture is at 8 a.m., but I'm usually at uni at least an hour before that, just to kind of plan my day and look at what I need to do and that. And and then it's just a matter of really like making the most of the time that you do have. Like a lot of time you'll see people have an hour break, and in that hour break they'll just go and sit and talk with their friends and all that sort of stuff, when that's like a solid hour that you could go and like attack a bit of an assignment or do some readings or things like that, so that you're not spending, you know, like getting to the end of the day and say you did that for 3 or 4 hours, that you were just talking to your friends and stuff in between classes. Well, now that's work that's done, and you've got the night to yourself. And then when you've got that night to yourself, then it's okay. Well, now I can go to the gym. I can do all those sorts of things. But it's being very structured with it all that I found the biggest thing. And I think one thing too about going back to uni was I started to enjoy my rest days a bit more, because it was a good chance to really just relax a little bit. Or if there was work I needed to get on top of, I could really do that too. So definitely a big thing.
Can we talk about the importance of rest days? Because I know for myself, I guess you could call it a bit of gym addiction. Like I struggle a lot with taking days off, because it almost feels like I can't get the day started if I haven't gone to the gym. Because I like the gym in the morning a lot of the time.
Right.
And do you have any advice for stressing the importance of rest days? And do you think they're important? Do you think you should be exercising every day, or how do you sort of handle that?
I think it's really important to listen to your body. You know, like. And not so much in the sense of like, oh, I wake up, I feel sore, okay, I'm going to take a rest day. More like looking at things like, okay, I haven't been getting a very good pump when I've been training, or when I've been at the gym, I haven't really been able to focus that well and really get into my workouts and all that sort of thing. They're more sort of telltale signs to me that you do need some time off. And I used to be very guilty of like, I've done shows. I think the shows that I've looked my absolute worst has been when I've thought that I needed to train twice a day or do all these things to try and get ready for a show. Whereas I think the best I've looked is when I've actually forced myself to take a rest day each week, you know, and even 2 rest days sometimes, and things like that. It's definitely something that is overlooked, and you know, the thing is like you can just go to the gym every single day, but as I think it was Dorian Yates was talking about, you know, if you're giving it an absolute 100%, there's no way that you'll be able to go to the gym every single day, you know, like. There's a difference between just training and then training to complete failure and with full intensity, you know.
When would you? One thing that I've sort of found it quite difficult, and I've asked a few people about this, but how do you know when to go to failure and when to push it as hard as possible and when to sort of cruise at like 2 to 3 below failure?
So I think that's kind of where periodization can come into it a bit. I mean, say you've got a bit of a funny shoulder or something like that, then that would be a time that, you probably wouldn't want to be taking it to failure with heavy weights and stuff. But I like to sort of plan out my training a bit and, say for 4 weeks, we'll just really focus on getting a lot stronger. And then I might take a deload period where I'll just take a week where it's going into the gym still, but it's nothing to complete failure. It's more just go in there, feel a good pump and that. And, you're kind of giving your body a rest that way. It's like an active rest, and then you might do 4 weeks of like hypertrophy focused training instead. Yeah. Mixing it all up. And, but I think, failure is definitely a very, very important part of muscle growth. But if you're doing that for, 52 weeks of the year and you're never giving your body that real good chance to kind of just rest up a little bit and stuff, that's when you're going to start to plateau and you're going to, stop seeing results. Yeah,
because it's definitely like, I find a lot of the time for a long time, I had this mindset of, okay, the harder you work, the better the results will be. But I feel like it gets to a point where you've just got to sort of chill out some days and let your body recover. Because especially for myself, I've got a lot of like sort of issues because I have scoliosis. So I had like a curved spine and then we fixed it with like a spinal fusion. And then that can like, I find that one issue leads to a bunch of different issues.
Yep.
How do you deal when you say if you have like a shoulder issue or you have a wrist issue? How do you work around that, especially when you've sort of got this time constraint of a show where that like you're pro, like you can't take a year off, like it's a hard thing to do. Like, how do you work around those issues and injuries?
What I've found a lot is, there's a difference between like an injury where it's, you probably need to go and get an X-ray because you might have actually torn a tendon or something like that. But like at the moment, I'm struggling with like a little bit of tennis elbow in my left elbow. Yeah. And so what I've been doing is kind of sort of like actively still training a little bit around it, but nothing that's going to really go and aggravate it with heavy weight. If I do, say I was training arms with that, I'll go in and do a really good bicep workout, but maybe just do some like rope push downs and some light work at the end, just my tricep, until it starts to come right. And I find that's really, really beneficial. But at the same time, it's like you need to keep up with regular physio work, and I get a lot of acupuncture as well. I find that really, really helpful. And you just got to stay on top of those things because little issues always lead to a big issue if they're not treated. Yeah, I definitely found I had like this wrist issue, and then I just ignored it for a long time, and I was like, oh, it's just a little pain, just daily. But I realized like it was coming every single time. And then I went to the physio, and they were like, okay, we're going to refer you to a surgeon. And then I'm like, fuck. Because basically they were saying, okay, you might need surgery or take a long time off. So I took like 6 weeks off. And now it's relatively okay. So, not too bad. How do you go about balancing studying and bodybuilding? And like, when do you sort of like figure out when you need to put more emphasis on study, like for example, at the end of the semester, and when you like, if you're leading up to a show, do you ever sort of plan your shows around your semester, or how does that sort of thing work? Yeah, so that's what I did last year, and it was my first year coming back to study last year. Yeah. And I had this idea like, okay, well, there's 2 shows in between semesters. That's a real good time to go and do a show. Like, I don't have to be at class. I can go over there and spend a couple of weeks in America and Canada where I went. But what happened was it ended up that the hardest weeks of prep were during my exams. Yeah. So while I'm supposed to be studying in that, I'm on 0 carbs almost, like very low carbs. I'm having to do all this cardio training every day and stuff. And it wasn't a smart way to do things. Yeah. So now I have to be a little bit more careful with it. Like I would rather do one show almost mid-semester, kind of not around any tests or exams, shoot over there because they're always on weekends, but it'd just be a real short trip. I'd just go for 4 or 5 days. And then the other one is like there's a show in March next year, which is the New Zealand Pro-Am, which is next weekend, but I'm waiting for next year's one. And that would give me the whole of summer to prep for a show, you know?
Yeah.
And then after that it would be, if I could do well in that show and qualify for the Olympia, well, that's September. So again, it's kind of not around that exam time. So you have to be very, very like clever with when you do decide to do a show and stuff.
Do you find when you were on extremely low carbs and it was also during exams, how did that affect your study? Like, did it completely drain you, or?
It was really interesting. It almost was that. I mean, it was like, I don't know. I find a little bit can be in the mind of it a lot. I found that I had quite good clarity, to be honest, when I wasn't taking in as much carbs. Yeah. And I mean, obviously that's because your insulin levels aren't raised as high and you don't have all that serotonin dumping. Yeah. So you're not feeling tired and sleepy and stuff. Yeah. So in a sense, it was good. And the other thing too is it forced me to get up in the morning and do my cardio every single morning. So by the time I got to uni, I was wide awake. But I did find that time became a big issue. So it was like, like I could not take the day off training, even though I had to really like get on top of this topic and all those sorts of things. And as long as I was getting enough sleep and stuff, I was usually okay. But I mean, different people are affected differently though. Some people I know like will go zero carb and they just almost go brain dead. And I think it's just different. Everybody's different biochemistry and how we work and stuff, what we prefer to run on. Yeah. And it's quite noticeable in different people. So,
do you have any sort of recommendations for getting like the most amount of knowledge, soaked in or whatever, in the shortest amount of time? Because I know for myself, especially last year, I wasn't really cramming, but I was pushing off studying, really like fully studying, because I wanted to just do other things and focus on my podcast, focus on YouTube, like all these other things. And then do you have any advice for, I guess, getting the most effective methods of study to produce the highest, I guess, yield for time?
Yeah. So one thing that I found really, really effective, which I was pretty bad at not doing last year, was given the first semester, was not really reading ahead with what we were going to be covering in that lecture. So everything was kind of always new stuff being thrown at me. Yeah. So when I got into a bit of a habit of reading ahead and knowing what we're going to cover and all that sort of thing, that really helped, because once the lecturer started talking about it, they would explain it in more detail. And I actually made a bit of an effort to not spend so much time trying to write down all the single details, but actually being in the lecture and just listening to what they had to say. Because I'm very bad with multitasking. Like I can, say I'm like texting someone and someone's like talking to me, I usually don't really even hear what that person's saying. I'm real bad for that. And I found it was exactly the same in the lectures. I would be writing all these words, but I mean, I may as well have not have been there. I may as well have just been copying down the slides in the library somewhere, So that's what I made an effort to do, was really listen, because then you can kind of pick up things that the lecturer is spending a lot of time on. Say, okay, this is going to be important in the exam. All those little things start to come into it. And then afterwards, I would review the lecture. That's what I'd probably do in my hour breaks and stuff. Review the lecture, go over a couple of things that were sort of key points that they brought up. And and then by the time exams come around and stuff, you've just got a much better foundation of knowledge to study.
It's like it's been sort of put in your mind, instead of just one time during the lecture where you're trying to copy down notes and listen and all that, you've reviewed a little bit before, you've reviewed it a little bit after, and it's like 3 times. I think there's some rule about where if you recall it a certain amount of times, it is much more likely to stay in or something. I'm not exactly sure what the rule is, but could we talk about sort of your commerce? Because when that happened, when you decided to not continue with that because it just wasn't fulfilling for you, how did you make that decision, and sort of how did it affect you mentally? Because I know a lot of kids are like, when they're doing a degree that they don't like, and then they're like, okay, I've hopped in this degree because I'm just out of school. How did you know when to drop it and just move on and figure out what you actually did want to do?
It's funny with me, what I did was I actually was sort of doing it, and then once I started competing in bodybuilding, and then I qualified to go compete in the Arnold in Ohio and stuff, I thought, right, I'm going to take this semester off, and I just want to focus on this, just do this for the semester. And it became one of those things where I just never went back full time with it. I was like, I'd have another one coming up, and so I'd make excuses or all these different things, and then Yeah, but it was like I told myself, oh no, I'm going to finish it, and I used to, like, because I was personal training at the time at Les Mills, and
Yeah.
I would tell my clients, oh yeah, I'm doing a commerce degree, but I need to go finish it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until one day I was just like, hang on, I want to get something, but that's not at all what I want to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I kind of almost started to think like, oh, I'm a little bit old to go back to uni to start something new, and it's going to be a long road and that. But I just kind of just woke up one day and just said, no, I'm doing it, and enrolled, and now I'm actually doing something I love. I love being at uni. I love studying it. So yeah, it's a completely different story.
I definitely think, like, once you do something that you actually really enjoy, because for me, the first semester of uni, it was very general at my uni. I go to AUT, so it's quite like, the first semester was basically every health profession was doing it. We were all doing the exact same thing, and I just hated it. But then semester 2, we got to specialize down. So then I got to pick podiatry, and it's just, it really became something that I actually enjoyed studying for.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I feel like that really just changed my work ethic with doing it.
Yeah, but that's such an important thing, is you've got to enjoy what you're learning about. I mean, it just wasn't for me. I mean, I was going to be a chartered accountant by the end of it. I was doing like tax, commercial law, and accounting papers, and finance papers. So that was where I was headed. But I used to tell myself, like, I'm not going to be an accountant. I don't want to be an accountant,
Yeah.
And so when I did change, it was, I used to spend a lot of time reading about how the body worked and stuff, and I think that's why I actually started competing in bodybuilding, and why I fell in love with it so much. It wasn't like so much on, different people do it for different things. Some people find that it really helps with their confidence, or like it's just an escape for them. It's all these different things, but for me it was more like I loved watching the body, and okay, you can like do this and this to it, and it will do this, that's what fascinates me. And so getting a chance to actually come back to uni and actually learning like the ins and outs of exactly what's happening there, and I apply it, and it's just, it's really benefited me.
Fascinating, and it's very applicable just to your normal everyday life.
Completely,
your bodybuilding is like, and
there's so much crosses over. It's crazy.
Yeah. Have you ever looked into, one thing that I've recently been quite intrigued by is obviously cold showers. They've been quite big over the last year or two. And then also, there's this person, Rhonda Patrick. You may have heard of her. She does like a lot of science-based sort of tests and stuff. Like, what do you call it? Studies. So basically, the thing with Rhonda Patrick is basically she's done research into hypothermic conditioning, which is basically saunering. And I think it's quite interesting because the effects that it has on hypertrophy is actually pretty crazy. Apparently, it like boosts growth hormone by 2 times for if you do two 20-minute sessions or something, and then it can boost it up to 16 times if you do, I think it's 2 1-hour sessions in this one, which is that's pretty intense though. But
far out.
Have you ever would you incorporate saunering into your recovery, or would it mainly be just things like foam rolling, stretching, etc.?
I haven't done a whole lot of saunering. Probably because I'm pretty bad in the heat. Like I really struggle in hot temperatures and stuff. But I mean, I'm always up to like trying new things and stuff. Like I do a lot of foam rolling, and I actually go to yoga at least once a week as well, which is just yin yoga, which is pretty much purely stretching. And that's helped me a ton with my leg training. Like I used to, every time I'd squat, my hip flexors would get so tight that it would pull down on my lower back, and next thing I'd just get like real bad lower back pain and stuff. And ever since, like, actively going, because I find if I stretch at home, I kind of, half-ass it a little bit, whereas when I'm actually in a yoga class, like, you just there and you just do it. So, that made a massive, massive difference with it. It's funny you brought up what you say?
For my low back pain, I have, like, quite bad low back pain just with scoliosis, because I'm fused down to, from L2 to T3. So, I found the things that really helped me was using a standing desk. One, if your uni has those, try find one of those. They're fucking amazing. My uni has a bunch of them, and I love it. And also, I found the saunering did help me, and also hopping off any stimulants. I'm assuming you don't smoke, so should be fine. But apparently, also a lot of caffeine, because I found the moment I hopped off, I used to start my day with 200 milligrams of caffeine. So now I hopped off that, and now my low back pain has just plummeted. Like it's a lot better now, just because I assume it's the combination of those factors. Yeah, but it's quite.
That's amazing, eh?
Yeah, it's crazy how, as you said before, like how the body fixes things, and how you just hop off, tweak a few things, and it's just like a dramatic difference.
it's amazing how many things pop up, and it's stuff that you would think completely unrelated, and it's like, oh my god, that was it the whole time. It's quite mind blowing when you really think about it.
Yeah, I'd like to finish off with this. What would be your main advice for the 18 to 22-year-old who is going to university, wants to get into either physique, bodybuilding, or classic or whatever, or they just want to have a side hustle? What would your advice be for them?
Make the most of your time that you do have. So I know, like, when you're kind of in that age group, I was guilty of it. Like, it's very tempting to go and spend all your free time like hanging out with friends and all that sort of thing. But it's, if you can find something that you're passionate about and something you can really like dedicate your time to, make that a priority. So, not just an afterthought with everything. If you want to get into, competing in bodybuilding and stuff like that, it can't be kind of just something that you just, every now and then, I'll go to the gym and stuff. I'm not feeling hungover or whatever, you've really got to make an effort to stay on top of things and stay very meticulous with it. And don't let yourself, if you're letting things slide, say in your uni and all that sort of thing, well, all of a sudden then that's going to be taking up too much time and you're not going to have time for the other things. So being meticulous in everything you do is what's going to give you the time to do it. It doesn't matter if it's competing in bodybuilding or if it is, having a side business or anything like that. It's all
about like pure time management. It changes everything.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. And I used to be terrible for it as well. I mean, it's something that I really had to teach myself, because I would spend days where I didn't even know what I had done the entire day. But, by spending 10 minutes to plan out your entire day saves you a few hours every single day. It's crazy.
Like, if you combine that with a lot of work ethic, it's like that can literally change lives. And you can just make a huge impact on whatever tasks you can do.
Oh, yeah. And I think it's something that's learned as well, is like the average person, like, they don't start off being able to work 12 hours a day kind of thing. It's something that you just get better and better at. And it's like anything really. It becomes a habit, and once you make something a habit, it becomes easy.
And where can people find you online if they want to look up some of your bodybuilding stuff, or they just want to check out your journey over the next few years? Where can people find you online?
The biggest thing is probably my Instagram. That's probably the one that I keep the most updated and stuff. So I just it's just Kurt Dell, one word.
Yeah.
And I mean, I try to post relatively regularly. Every now and then I'll go through a little patch, but I'm really trying to do a lot more sort of informative posts. I find that I get really, really good response from those. Yeah. And I actually forget different things that I could kind of share as well. So when people message me and ask different things, I sometimes think, oh, that's a really good idea, and I'll write an actual full post on it. And that's definitely probably the best way to find me and follow me.
Yeah, and I definitely find like those kind of posts, the thing is you've got the experience and you've got the results. So it's like, I feel like you're in a position where no one can really be like, oh, who are you to tell us how to do it? But it's like, you've done it. You've got the results. You've obviously done it in a smart way. And I think like an information-based posts are a great way to go.
Yeah, definitely. And, I mean, that's probably something that held me back a little bit as well, is in the past you sort of feel like you don't want to be preaching, especially if you don't sort of have something to prove that you know what you're talking about. Yeah. So by actually, coming to uni and learning these things and stuff, you feel a lot more confident to be able to do that and help other people. So
and just show that it's not all just bro science or anything like that. But
that's it. Hey, bro science does my head in.